Good morning. I think the song that the choir just sang pretty much sums up the whole talk. How do we live life to death? By realizing the self. But we'll have to take a little longer way to get there, okay? According to Albert Einstein, there's only two ways to live life. One is as though nothing is a miracle, and the other is as though everything is a miracle. Now, if we stop and think about that, if we live it as though nothing were a miracle, we would be living in a pretty mundane, boring manner. Because everything would be ordinary, everything would be, oh, yeah, that happened. If we live everything as though everything is a miracle, every moment is new, exciting, something to look forward to, something to be grateful for. In talking about living life to death, which is what don't ask me. I went to a concert about 4 months ago, and one of the songs said, living life to death, and that hit me, and I went, that's just wonderful. Everyone should live like that. As though, enjoying every moment of their life, not just sitting and waiting for whatever's going to happen, but to actually take an active enjoyment in life. I thought that was, okay, that's the way I would like to live my life, not just sitting and going, well, what are we going to do today? I got up, and I guess I have to do the same old thing every single day. Get up, brush your teeth, meditate a little while. If it's me, catch the news and see what the weather's going to be, do a little stretching. Total routine, okay. But what I think all of us should be able to do is to wake up in the morning and go, yes, we have another day, and be grateful for it and be happy about it. The way this topic is going to be fairly closely tied to the Katha Upanishad, which is one of the other titles for it is Dialogue with Death. And most of you, I think, probably know the Katha. It is Nachiketa, whose father is doing a ceremony, a great big ceremony to get boons in this life. And he's making tremendous offerings, but all of his offerings are kind of substandard. He's only offering the things that he owns that are old, a little worn out. He's not offering the best that he has to the Lord. So his son Nachiketa is very upset by this and says, what do you offer me, Father? And he asks it 3 times, and his father gets mad, and he says, to you I offer death. I offer you to death. So he goes down and has this great dialogue with the king of death, Yama, on how to go beyond death. And it was Swami Vivekananda's favorite Upanishad. When we celebrate his birthday, we read it every morning when we offer breakfast to him. If any of you are interested in hearing it read aloud to you, but you can certainly read it. It's not long. 25 minutes for a loud reading. Okay. How do we escape death? How can we live life to death? We can't live life with this great joy if we're afraid. If we face life with fear and uncertainty, we're not going to be happy about our lives. We're not going to feel successful. We're going to always have, well, maybe I should have done that, maybe I shouldn't have done that. It goes on forever. I'm going to quote from Eknathishwaran's Katha Upanishad, which the old title was Dialogue with Death. What's the new title? Still the same? I think it's got a different title because I just got the new version. But anyway, he says that what we are, and I'll be quoting him, you are what your deep driving desire is. As your deep driving desire is, so is your will. And think about, what do you want most? And you actually pursue it. As your will is, so is your deed. That's what you take action on. And as your deed is, so is your destiny. Now the Katha Upanishad goes in next to what are desires. Desire is what impels us through life. We would not be here if we did not have desires. Big ones, little ones, good ones, bad ones, we all have desire. So one of the main, I would say the main thrust of the Katha Upanishad is taming your will, taming your mind, because it is your mind that creates the desires. Well, your senses create the desires, but your mind attaches to them immediately. And if we can control our minds, we can have mastery over our senses. This illustration is given in the Katha. He who, brooding upon sense objects, comes to yearn for them, is born here and there, again and again, driven by his desire. But he who has he, she, it, whatever you want. This was translated in the early part of the century, so it was all he. That means mankind. But he who has realized the self and thus satisfied all hunger attains liberation even while in this life. The Katha Upanishad gives the illustration of the chariot and the rider. And I'll quote again. Know the self is the rider, self with a capital S, your inner being. And the body is the chariot. That's the vehicle we have to use in this life. The intellect is the charioteer, and the mind are the reins. The senses, say the wise, are the horses. The roads they travel are the mazes of desire. The wise call the self the enjoyer when he is united with the body, the senses, and the mind. When a man lacks discrimination and his mind is uncontrolled, his senses are unmanageable, like the restive horses of a charioteer. But when a man has discrimination and his mind is controlled, his senses, like the well-broken horses of a charioteer, lightly obey the rein. Now, I think that's quite an illustration if any of you have been around horses and you're not too comfortable with them, which I have been, and they immediately sense it and they're like all over the place. As soon as you have control of your own mood and mind, the horse calms down immediately. And it took quite a few experiences with horses that I was just like terrified of before I could get a hold of my own fear and say, no, we're in this together. We're going to help each other. And immediately the horses are good. Have any of you ever, years ago they brought in wild Mustangs from Wyoming that they'd herded up. And we went out to Earl Warren Showgrounds because they were going to adopt out the Mustangs. Well, these horses were terrified. They had been herded by helicopters. They had been pushed into these trucks, and they were terrified. Monty Roberts came over from Santa Ynez, and it literally didn't take him more than 4 minutes with each horse to have it calm down, at ease, and walking into a trailer. Control of his own mind and moods. When you have control of that, you have control of basically your universe. Because in the external world, we are always going to be facing changes. That's the very nature of it. Everything is going to change, and we can't be afraid of those changes. We actually have to embrace them as good things. Embrace the change. How we handle those changes, and we've been through a lot in Santa Barbara this last year, how we handle those changes actually shows us how we handle our lives. It really does, if we stop and analyze how much mastery do we have of our emotions and our mind. Now, I'm not saying go into indifference. Don't just sit there and go, I'm not going to react. I mean, actual mastery of your mind, to be able to have the emotion, look at it, and say, it's just an emotion. It's not who I am. This is one of the gunas acting through me, passing through. This is not who I am. Because I am immortal, I am eternal, and my basic nature is divine. I may not know it yet, I may not experience it all the time, but I think we have all had moments when we know we are eternal. And that's who we really are. All this other stuff is just little like paintings on top of us, layers and layers of paint that we have to scrape off. Or 24 layers of outfits, and we have to take them off one at a time. Robert Frost said, change is the only thing we can rely on. Things will always change, and this is not something that we should fear. It's something we should appreciate. He's the one who said how we handle change is oftentimes a key indicator on how we handle our life. Inspirational sayings that you gather can offer us a roadmap for navigating uncertainty in our experience. In 3 words, I can sum up everything I've learned about life. It goes on. And that's the truth. It goes on. And we have to, if we want to be the master of our life and have choices, we have to take a hold of our mind and deal with it. Ishwar in another place said, just 1 second, I have to find it. Yes. Taking mastery of your mind is not repression. It's not pushing down thoughts. I shouldn't have that thought. I shouldn't have that thought. I shouldn't be doing this. It's transformation. When the controlled mind approves of a desire, you still know how to enjoy it. If the controlled mind disapproves of a desire, you have a choice right then and there. You don't have to live in the everyday life of stimulus reaction. He said that, I said that. That goes back and forth. You live in a world of freedom. How often do we live in a world of bondage that is, we have no choice. We are reacting to what's going on around us. But choice is freedom. It's freedom in this life. It's not something we have to wait for. Ruysbroek, a Flemish mystic, said, "The measure of your holiness is proportionate to the goodness of your will." He told some university students, "You are as holy as you want to be." Now, this is very similar to what Abraham Lincoln said. Everyone's just about as happy as they want to be. We all hold on to our past memories. Oftentimes we hold on to the ones that were hurtful rather than the ones that were helpful. If we can learn from the hurtful ones, yes, but then leave them. Because until you can let go of the past, forgive yourself and others, you can't move on. And there's nothing we can do about the past. It is over. And the only thing that keeps it alive is us sitting there going, and then, and then, and then. And I should have, or I could have. You know, what's the thing? Every argument's really good in retrospect because I should have said this and I could have said that. And none of it matters at all because the event's over. We can't change it, but we can learn from it and be ready for a similar experience and know we have a choice in that. But how do you gain mastery over your will? Now, have any of you tried to start a new exercise regime because someone told you had to? Have any of you tried to start a diet because your doctor says, you'd probably be healthier with 5 pounds less? The will does not want to get started. The senses are all saying, oh, but it's so much nicer to just sit here and read this book. I don't really want to go out and run. Or I can start that diet tomorrow. It'll be just as good. No. The will is basically very strong, but unless we train it, it can be very lazy. Because the senses are all saying, no, let's go here, let's go there, let's go over here. And the senses take control like the horses. So how do we train our will? Well, the same way we start our exercise regime, a little bit at a time. You're not going to go in immediately and say, from now on, I will never eat chocolate again. Well, how long is that going to last? About till the next piece of chocolate walks by. But if we say, I'm going to try to limit, or I'm going to think about it before I put it in my mouth, we won't get there immediately, but we will gain, by exercising this attempt to control the will, we will gain progress with every step. The only way to get anything is in life, proficiency in anything, is to set a goal, know what you want to accomplish, find a teacher, someone who's done it before you, knows more about it than you do. We do that in every aspect of life except often our spiritual growth, because we think we can do that on our own. Well, we can, but it's going to take longer. Just like if you tried to learn advanced physics, yes, you could probably learn it reading books, but it may take 2 or 3 lifetimes. If you found a teacher in a good college, you could learn it. So you find a good teacher, and then you listen to them and put into practice what they advise or tell you to do, just like in any school, in any endeavor you do. And then what do? You practice, practice, practice. You put it over, and you keep doing it, and you keep doing it until you get fairly proficient at it. And you're not quite happy. Fairly proficient is not quite enough. So you keep practicing until you get good at it. And then you decide, well, I can do better than this. So you keep practicing until you master it, whatever it is. And by the time you have mastered it, your will is in pretty good form. It's more, your will is exercised and ready to meet those senses when they come on, so you can have a choice. You won't be dragged through life by your eyes, your taste buds, your senses, whatever, touch, everything. You will not be dragged through life then. You will have that choice, which, to my way of thinking, is freedom. I mean, if I can say no, or I can say yes, am I not free? Victor, one of my favorite was he a psychologist? Victor Frankl, who had not the most pleasant experiences in life, has said that, wait, I've lost the one I wanted to say. Okay, when we can no longer change a situation, and often we do get in situations that cannot be changed. We can leave, but we can't change the situation. The only option is to change ourselves. If we're stuck in a situation, which I would say all of Santa Barbara was earlier this year, we're stuck in a situation. So we have to look at ourselves, see what we can do on the external world, what we can change. Wasn't much when no water was available. So then you change yourself and you adapt. And you change the way you think about it. We're very adaptable, and our nature is immortality and divinity. So all of these little things that we do that create problems they're not us. And Dale Carnegie, who was one of the wealthiest men in the United States for sure, said it isn't what you have or who you are or where you are or what you're doing that makes you happy or successful. The only thing that makes you happy or successful is what you think about it. How you think about who you are, where you are, what you're doing, and that's it. We can all have exactly the same experience. And it's the old thing of seeing the glass half full or seeing the glass half empty. The fact is, the glass, there's half in it. That's it. And we had the empty or full. So this is the way we can control how we think of things, and basically our lives, and give ourselves freedom to act. Not being a reactive being, but an active being. And as long as we're alive and living in this world, we have to treat it as real, because it is our real experience. And that's what we have to train our minds to deal with. Yes, in the ultimate sense, it's an illusion, but we don't know that yet. It's not an illusion to us. I don't wake up and say, oh, I'm in another dream. I usually wake up and I go, what do I have to do today? What's on the agenda for today? Because this is where we live until we have realized our true nature. And then, yes, you can wake up every day like, the saints do and say, all of this is God. Everything I see is God. And how can you be, that to me would be, as Ramakrishna said, a mansion of mirth right here on earth. If I could wake up in the morning and say, everything that I see is God, and know it, I can say it, and I have faith in it, but to really know it, to have that experience, every event that happened to us would be God. That's all there is. And so, happy, unhappy, it wouldn't even enter the equation. Because it is. Okay, we've gained mastery over the will. I've lost my pages now. Oftentimes when we take up our spiritual life, we don't take it up with we take it up with the thought that we have to change our entire life. We can no longer go to the movies. We have to get up in the morning. We have to meditate. We have to renounce most of the things that we enjoyed because we have to take up this spiritual path. If we do get to the realization, though, that our basic nature is divine, and the whole world, everything we see is divine, there's very little you have to change. Yes, you have to have basic morality. Yes, you have to follow, think of thy neighbor as thyself. Treat everyone as you would like to be treated. Basic morality, don't kill. It's like the 10 Commandments. It's the, eight truths of Buddhism. Everything. There is basic morality that you must follow. You can't just go out and do whatever you want. But you can't take yourself into a corner where you can't enjoy anything, where you feel guilty enjoying things. No, we can't do that. Life is joy, and life is bliss, and life is happiness, if that's the way we choose to live it. This one, Eli Wiesel made a very good statement too. He said, the opposite of love is not hate, it's indifference. The opposite of art is not ugliness, it's indifference. The opposite of faith is not heresy, it's indifference. And the opposite of life is not death, but indifference. Now, think about that. I can get into a mood where I can ignore things that I can't change right now. And it is a certain kind of indifference, and it's a certain kind of tamasic attitude. I don't want to deal with it, so I'm not going to. And what do we have to do to get over those kind of attitudes? We have to take action. We have to, in Vedantic terms, tamas, rajas, and sattva are the three gunas that pass through us all the time. So when you get into a tamasic mood, which is basically inertia, laziness, anger, the not so positive attributes of human life, how do you get over those things? You pick yourself up and you go out and do some work. You just get to working. And if it's whatever. Rajas, which is the action in life, and we all have to act. Every time you tend to get lazy, depressed, instead of going down into that mood, pick yourself up and go out and do something. Go volunteer somewhere, go out and rake the Convent Grove. That's always available. Do some karma yoga, clean your house. We have a friend who, every time she had to do something she didn't want to do, she immediately cleaned every single cupboard in the house. Now, and then once she got all of that straightened up, then she could sit down and do what she didn't want to do. Because actually, it does work. Going into physical activity gives you the calmness of mind to go into the sattvic activities, which are like meditation, study, introspection. But you have to get enough energy built up to do those things. So, more things in training the will. Well, you have to find something that grabs your attention. Grabs your attention that you can put your passion and your energy in. Now, the first time I know I came to the convent here, I heard the very simple precepts of Vedanta, which were God is, all paths lead to the same God, man's basic nature is divine, and the reason for human birth is to uncover that divinity. I thought, wow. First of all, I always believed God is, still is. And I'd always believed that all paths led to the same God, because you can't have a God that excludes certain portions of the continent and whole peoples. There has to be only one God if God is. I think we've all experienced that we are that we have a sense of eternity. We don't have a sense of beginning and end. When you look at babies who come into the world, it's the same thing. They come in already as a little package. And we have a couple of books over in the bookstore about children who remember their past lives. Where was I before I was here? What was I doing then? It's a common thing. It's not uncommon. We like to think it might be, but it isn't. And I like the idea that human birth was like a chance to experience this. I sort of thought, well, it's kind of like a gym. This is where we work out. We work out our defects, or not defects. We just get to be the person that we know we are, the one who can climb the mountain, climb Everest if we want to. We can do anything we want to, but this is our gymnasium. And so if we take advantage of it, it can be wonderful. You can enjoy every minute of it. We're not going to change anything. We're just going to take off the layers of dust or dirt, paint, clothes, whatever. And you can do this intellectually, as we all know, which is jnana yoga. You can do this by negating for a while what is not eternal. I find that a tiny bit too negative for my own personal. I can look at things. I can't do it with the whole world. I can look at some things and say, yes, that's not eternal, this is going to be constant change. Personally, I find it easier to take the tantric approach where you affirm everything. That's God, that's God, that's God. But we have to find, with the help of a teacher, which is your efficacious path. Christianity comes out with the way, a very simple statement. Love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. and thy neighbor as thyself. To my mind, that covers everything. What do we have to do after that? If we truly loved our neighbors as ourselves, there would be no conflict in this world. If we could truly put that into action. But we do get drawn out by the senses. Personalities, which are just, God knows what, plastered on our divine self. Our personalities clash. But our true inner beings never clash. And if it gets too hard to think of that, no one's going to do that right off the bat, except God himself or a saint. But we can repeat it to ourselves like a constant reminder. And we'll get better at it. That's part of what initiation and mantras do. Mantras, the constant repetition changes your whole action. Constantly doing this. Now I'm going to end this lecture with a quote from the Gita. You're all familiar with the Bhagavad Gita. Okay, it's Krishna talking to Arjuna at the beginning of the battle right on the battlefield, and Arjuna wimps out. All of a sudden he says, I can't go to battle. I'm killing my relatives. And for, 3 days, Krishna taught him, these things go on forever. Krishna taught him the secret of life and the secret of what life is all about and how to be illumined. So this is the very final thing that Krishna says, and he's speaking. Now that I have taught you the wisdom which is the secret of secrets, ponder it carefully, then act as you think best. These are the last words I shall say to you, the deepest of truths. I speak for your own good. You are the friend I chose and love. Give me your whole heart, love and adore me. Worship me only, and you shall find me. This is my promise, who love you dearly. Lay down all duties in me, your refuge. Fear no longer, for I will save you from sin and from bondage. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Filled with Brahman are the things we see. Filled with Brahman are the things we see not. From out of Brahman floweth all. Yet is Brahman still the same. Peace, peace, peace be unto us all.